So the Yankees have quite a bit of work to do this offseason. And no matter what they do to finish the season, whether they die out in the playoffs, win the World Series, doesn't matter. They have holes to fill, and they need to put themselves in position to be more competitive against these teams that are becoming more athletic, more versatile, less reliant on certain things, and are a better combination of analytics and fundamental baseball and just all talent, because generally the teams with the most talented rosters are the ones that are winning the World Series. So the Yankees need to kind of address quite a few things, and I just want to go over a couple of them today. I talked about recently making decisions or having to make decisions at first base and shortstop and how it kind of filters out to other areas. I want to go into a little bit of detail today, so I want you guys to know, and gals, to let me know what you think. Okay, so this is my thought process. Number one, I say thank you for a great career, but I let Brett Gardner walk. And I know some people would like to keep him around. And, he's finishing, and I hope that he finishes this season really strong. And give him a Brett Gardner day and just really thank him for being a great Yankee for 15 years. But it's time to get younger, okay? And we already have Judge, Gallo, and Stanton in the outfield, and it's time to let younger kids, like Estevan Florial and some of these other kids. You get Trey Ambergy, you have some, and we have Tim LaCastro is coming back from ACL surgery too. So we have a lot of options out there, okay? So it's important to keep that in mind. So, but I let Gardner walk. I let Andrew Heaney walk, obviously. I let Corey Kluber walk. And right there alone, you're saving almost $20 million in payroll, okay? The two question marks for me are in terms of out free agents are Joely Rodriguez and Anthony Rizzo. I'll get to that in a minute. So, and we have to establish health for some guys like Aaron Hicks and Andujar and Frazier to see whether they're viable options to stay here or be moved in a trade. Now, Aaron Hicks is under a very, very reasonable contract for the next 5 years. And with his production, if he establishes health, he's either going to stay here, and he's a switch hitter, so he does bring a lot of value here, and he's an elite defender. So, or the Yankees could package him in a trade for somebody, okay, and somewhere. Now, whether they decide this offseason to make universal DH a thing, that opens up a lot of spots for a lot of Yankee players like Hicks or even a Giancarlo Stanton and stuff like that. But I'm not going to do anything regarding that because it hasn't happened yet. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, establishing health for a guy like Aaron Hicks is very important. And even Andujar and Frazier. Now, personally, I think their tenure in the Yankees is over. Unfortunately, I hate saying because I like both of them, but we have to establish health so that they become valuable trade assets. And I think, and they both are under team control until 2025, so they're affordable assets, and they can go to a team that can use some young, dynamic players who have a good bat. Both of them have a good bat, and Andujar plays infield and outfield, so he gives them some versatility. But I'd rather give them a change of scenery and let them shine somewhere else, unfortunately. But the combination of mismanagement and just not doing things right here at the Yankees. But let's move on from that. Let's establish health for those guys, okay? And those guys, if they establish their health and they play well, they deserve to start somewhere. You don't keep kids down at the farm that are playing well. You bring them up and you let them play, especially if you have starters up here who are not performing. Okay, so that rolls into this stuff. Because if they're healthy and productive, why the hell would you not play them? Let them play somewhere else where a team's going to allow them to flourish. Okay, so let's get them healthy and move on, and move them in trades and get some prospects back in return and not look back. Period. Okay? Now, the first decision, and I said this before, just making decisions, I think the Yankees have to make a decision at first base and shortstop. And for a couple of reasons. So, and I'm going to go into detail. Now, in terms of free agency, if they're going to bring in somebody as a free agent for first base, to me it's Freddie Freeman. It's between Freeman and Rizzo. Freeman's a little bit better than Rizzo. They're the same age, but Freeman's a little bit better. He's got the same skill set, left-handed hitting, offensively good contact hitter. He's a reigning MVP, and he's defensively skilled with the glove. So, to me, either him or Rizzo are going to cost quite a bit of money. But then it leaves Luke Voit there, too. So what do you do with Voit? Do you move him in a package for pitching? Maybe. So that's the conundrum that the Yankees are in. They already have somebody here who's also under cheap control until 2025, so he's got a lot of value. When he's healthy, his bat is high end. So he's a valuable trade asset if they want to move him. So, or trade, the only viable trade to me is you either move Voit or Gleyber Torres and with a like a Luis Medina pitcher and somebody else, even an Andujar or Frazier, you see if you can move him to Oakland for Matt Olson. To me, Olson he has the defensive wizardry of the Rizzo and Freeman and the bat of a Freeman and a Voit. So he is better than all of them. All of them. And he's also 5 years younger. He's 27. I could see hitting bombs over the Yankees' right field porch for a decade. So, and he's not a huge blumbering guy. He's an athletic player, and he's got a good glove. So he, to me, if I'm going to trade for anybody, I'm packaging a lot. And then think about it. Oakland doesn't generally re-up their players on big contracts. So if you give them an Andujar and a Voit and a controllable start, you're giving them over a decade's worth of controllable, cheap players to fill multiple positions for an Olsen who they're not going to give a $100 million plus contract to. We already know that. So you go hard and you try to see what they'll accept for Matt Olson. Okay? And we have the pieces to get. As long as you don't have to move Volpe or Peraza or Jason Dominguez or something like that or Luis Hill, you give them what they want. And we have guys here that can give the A's value. And they're really good at developing players and turning average players into really good players before they let them walk or trade them. The A's just do that. They constantly, that's their cycle. So that's the big decision to me at first base. And obviously you have Chris Gittens in the farm, power hitting right-handed hitter, so you bring him up as a backup to either Rizzo or Freeman or Voit or a Matt Olson. Okay? So it's Olson on the trade market, the only guy I would trade for. Freeman or Rizzo in free agency. And then you decide what to do with Voit. You either trade him for pitching or in trade for a big player like Olson. The same thing goes for Gleyber Torres. Okay, and that's where the shortstop first baseman link comes into play. If you move Gleyber Torres in a trade, then it frees up shortstop. Now, obviously our prospect options are Anthony Volpe and Oswald Peraza. They're not major league ready yet, but they're moving up rather quickly. Okay, Peraza's closer because he's a little bit older and he's already been called up. So, and then Volpe's still developing, but want to make sure he continues that upward trend. And if the results keep going with the promotions, then he's going to be up rather quickly. But he also has versatility. He can play shortstop and second base. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that shortstop. But those are our prospect options. Stopgap options, to me, a guy like Andrelton Simmons. If you want to have a bridge to these guys, Andrelton Simmons or even a Trevor Story, if he's willing to take it, a short-term, high-salary deal, like a 1 or 2 year deal, and it sounded like he was amenable to that, you do that and let him be a bridge. Okay, it adds power and defensive versatility to the lineup as well. And not for long term. Okay? So, or long-term free agent. Initially, I had Marcus Semien on this list, but the way he's played this year, he's earned himself a long contract. 4 or 5 years, probably. Maybe even longer than 5. And so I take him off this list, and he becomes a long-term free agent option. But to me, it's him, Carlos Correa, Corey Seager, and those 3 guys are the long-term options if the Yankees decide to invest in a shortstop. But that's basically conceding that they're giving up on Volpe and Peraza, and they're going to either play him in different positions or trade him for somebody big, which I would not do personally. But those are the options there. Or, if they move Gleyber Torres, there's some positional versatility you can give right here. Like if you move Torres to second, you move Gio to short, you move DJ to first. Okay, you either have one of these guys here options. The Rizzo, you already have Voit, so you do that and you just improve the infield defense. Gio has the best range of these guys at shortstop, so you plant him there, and he's got a good arm. Or you do that, and if you move on from Voit, you get a guy like Eduardo Escobar, who's a free agent, and you get him on it. He's 32 years old as well, so you get him on a nice 2-year deal, if you can. And he plays multiple infield positions. He's got a switch hitter, and he's got a good bat. You can play him at first and DJ at third, or switch him. Play him at third and DJ at first, and you have Gio at short and Torres at second. Again, you've improved the offense and the defense from the infield. And at a cost-effective way. Eduardo Escobar is not going to cost $20 million a year. But he's a good switch hitter. He moved to the Brewers, and he's been playing extremely well. He gives the young lineup versatility. So that's the way to do it on that end. So, but the only way I move Torres is for pitching or in a trade for somebody like a Matt Olson. It's the only way I move Luke Voit too. Period. For pitching or a guy like Matt Olson. End of story. Or Luis Castillo. That's the pitching. So, starting pitching, either Carlos Rodon, Robbie Ray, or Justin Verlander. You consider giving him maybe a 1 or 2 year deal, or 1 year deal with a 2nd year option at a moderate salary with a lot of incentives based on innings pitch. He's coming back from the TJ surgery, so, and I know we have guys like that already, but I move Severino to the bullpen no matter what. I don't have him in the rotation anymore. He's in the bullpen. You bring a guy like Verlander, who is a gamer, and who will also help make the other pitchers better. You have a guy that if you got a Rodon and a Verlander, completely revamp the Yankees rotation, especially with Kluber not coming back. Herman, we don't know. I mean, I'm not really relying on those guys. I'm not relying on Davy Garcia, but it also gives flexibility and time to continue to develop Luis Hill without the pressure. Guys like Randy Velasquez, who I talked to yesterday, without the pressure. They're young. Let them develop. Okay? Don't throw them to the wolves just yet. Okay? My fear is the Yankees are going to bring in somebody like Kyle Davies from the Cubs, which I hope they don't do. He's a mediocre pitcher, and they don't really do well transitioning from the National League to the American League. Vice versa, maybe, not from the NL to the AL. He'll get clobbered here. Clobbered. And we don't need another Jeff Weaver. So, okay. Relief pitching, they got to upgrade there. I would be going after Racel Iglesias, Michael Lorenzen, a young fireballer from the Reds. Okay, and then I would consider, bringing Joe Lee back. He's a versatile. He's a lefty, so we need some of that lefty protection. He's been solid here. And just call up one of the left-handed prospects that they have. They already have Wandy here, and they got a bunch of other guys in the bullpen, but we need a right-handed power arm who's reliable. And those two guys, Lorenzen and I think Iglesias, represent that, particularly Iglesias. Plus, you're taking them away from another American League team. All right? And then you have protection so that if Chapman gets moved or moves after next season, we also get protection from Britton, who's going to miss most of the next season as well. That's what I do in the bullpen. In terms of catching, if there's any way they can sign Mike Zunino from the Tampa Bay Rays, he has an option for this year. If it doesn't get exercised, I'm calling him 100 times. You get him here, and it gives him flexibility to move Gary Sanchez. Okay? Sanchez is a free agent in 2023. And the only scenario where I move Sanchez is if you get a guy like Mike Zunino here. You take him away from Tampa Bay, you keep a good offensive duo in the catching position, and you've improved your defense. So that's the way I do it. This is my thought process on the Yankees offseason. Now, these aren't my predictions, but I'll be doing that. And then once the season's over, I'll go into more details how I would build out the Yankees team. But this is the way I'm thinking right now based on how they're playing and what the other teams are starting to look like. So give me your feedback. Let's get into it.